That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about False Positive, the sophomore film directed by John Lee, which premiered at the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival shortly before it will stream on Hulu June 25th, 2021.
What is John's first film?
Pee-wee's Big Holiday.
Oh, so there was a big gap.
But he does a lot of TV.
Sure.
Yeah, he's actually done quite a bit, but notably Broad City, which stars Ilana Glazer, who's the star of this film and also co-wrote it, and a lot of other Search Parties, done a few episodes of that.
I thought this movie was crazy as hell, and not in a good way.
To be fair, I had a lot of fun with it, watching it with others.
I was sitting alone watching it.
I think it does help kind of being able to yell at the screen for this, and it perhaps doesn't end up where you would hope it would go.
Okay, let me tell the basic story. It's set in modern time. It's about a married couple named Adrian and Lucy. Mm-hmm. Adrian is played by Justin Theroux, and Lucy is played by Ilana Glazer. Mm-hmm. Married, Adrian is a reconstructive surgeon, and Lucy works in marketing. They're trying to have a baby naturally, unsuccessfully, when Adrian proposes they see a fertility doctor. Dr. Hindle, who's played by Brosnan. Dr. Hindle was a professor, one of Adrian's professors in medical school. Mm-hmm. So they have a relationship. We also understand Dr. Hindle is like the foremost fertility doctor in the country. So it's very difficult to get an appointment with him, but he will see them right away. They go, and he says, yeah, no problem, I can get you pregnant. So they do it. Lucy gets pregnant, and we discover she has 3 babies in her. Mm-hmm. 2 male twins, or male twins. People don't like when you say 2 twins.
Right.
Male twins, a set of male twins, and a female.
A singlet.
A singlet. But Dr. Hindle says we need to do selective reduction because not all 3 can be born. It's high risk. He recommends she keeps the boys because they're in the same sack and they have a higher weight than the girl. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Hindle and Adrian act like, yeah, we're going to keep the boys. And Lucy says, no, I need to think about this. She talks it over with her husband and says, I'm keeping the girl. So they go back, tell Dr. Hindle I'm keeping the girl. He says, okay. They proceed with the procedure and she moves on. There's a lot going on while she's pregnant. Namely, she's having a lot of visions which are very akin to Rosemary's Baby. Maybe she has the spawn of Satan in her.
Or, yeah.
Something evil.
Lots of similar mechanisms to Rosemary's Baby.
Yes, but everything culminates with Lucy saw an ad or an article about this midwife, and
whose name, Grace Singleton, you will come to know.
Yeah, Grace Singleton. Whose message and teachings really resonate with her, and she decides, I'm going to have my baby with Grace Singleton, not Dr. Hindle. So she does. She drops Dr. Hindle, delivers with Grace Singleton, and when Grace pulls out the baby, she says, oh, this is a boy, not the girl you were thinking, and oh, wait, you're crowning again. There's another baby, but there are complications because something about the placenta wants to detach, so you need to go to the hospital. So they leave, end up going to see Dr. Hindle, and he delivers 2 healthy twin boys, a set of healthy twin boys. So of course, gagged. Mm-hmm. Like I told you, I wanted the girl, not the boys. Lucy then discovers that Dr. Hindle, so there's no demon, there's no evil spirits. Dr. Hindle has been impregnating apparently all of his clients with his own sperm. So he's trying to clone himself. Mm-hmm. Lucy assaults Dr. Hindle, goes home, takes her babies, the twin boys, gives them to her husband and says, go. The end. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I have so many. I don't think I've had this many notes on a film in a long time.
Oh boy.
And I'm not going to make this a long video because I'm sure you're going to discuss some of this. But could I just start with... So this is a Tribeca Film Festival selection.
Yeah.
Right? So this is my only film, the only film I watched from the festival. But I'm assuming they all open with Kim Cattrall.
No.
Oh. This film... You know how film festival... Usually film festivals have like an opening video talking about all the donors and how important it is, or some message. So with this video, it was Kim Cattrall in her, I think, like basement living room talking about turning off your cell phones. That shit was so crazy and so bootleg. And I should have known this movie was going to be crazy.
No, it's a hybrid film festival. So if you're watching from home, a different notable person introduces each one but reads the same text.
Oh, sure. But she was like... It was weird. There were like posters not hanging and like MacBook chargers like just hanging out in the wall.
I was just fast forwarding through all those. But...
I thought that was funny. Okay, just going through my notes. Pierce Brosnan looks good.
Yeah.
And I think he's the best part of the film.
Oh, he's fun. He's a lot of fun. But
I don't know that I think he's fun, but I thought he did a good job.
But he's also a testament to how this film is tonally all over the place.
Yeah. When they go to Dr. Hindle's office for the first time, Lucy's apprehensive because she's like, well, we've already talked to doctors before and, you know, they couldn't help us. So what are you going to do? And he explains to her something about something. And then he shows, like, on his wall, he has a bunch of pictures.
I did watch the Wall of Troubled Women.
The Wall of Troubled Women. And it's only, like, 10 photos, like, 10 portraits of, like, women who have delivered babies with him. I thought that was so awkward.
Yeah. And then it's like, am I going to be on that wall?
Right. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming he asked for permission, but I would be so uncomfortable. Like, you have your patient's pictures in the examining room.
Yeah.
So Dr. Hindle's, like, it's called the Hindle Nursing Center or Hindle Medical Institute, and he's supposed to be big time. Mm-hmm. When I tell you the furniture and the setup of that institute was so raggedy, it looked like clearance shit from Big Lots.
I thought they were just trying to make it look real sterile.
Oh, it was. No, real sterile would have been like...
Well, it's sparse.
Sparse, but like modern pieces spread out. But this was just some old tacky ass furniture. And then the head nurse, who's also the receptionist, but then there's also another nurse.
Played by Gretchen Mol.
Oh, I couldn't stand her. Her character's wearing like a little like earpiece, like microphone, and she keeps talking into it like she's like Secret Service. Mm-hmm. Like...
I do like Gretchen Mol. She's, came about in the 90s. She's damn near 50. I thought she looked pretty good.
She looks great, and it's not the actor I have a problem with. It's this character and the tone. Because she and her interactions with her, like, other nurse, to me, read like comical.
Right. But she does other things that kind of grant her... She's supposed to be insidious, like when she goes to fetch the magazine.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay. So one aspect... The movie is all over the place. There are so many things happening. So one of them is Lucy works for a marketing firm and she's been offered like the gig to like manage a big account. And it's a big opportunity for her. And she's nervous because now she's pregnant and how's that going to affect her trajectory? Ultimately, it affects it negatively because they take it away from her because they think she's going to be preoccupied, even though she gives the pitch and it goes smashingly. Anyway, initially when we meet her boss and her two male employees, the black guy I recognized.
Sullivan Jones, we just saw in The Bachelor recently.
The Bachelor?
With Jasmine, or The Surrogate with Jasmine.
Oh, The Surrogate. Oh, that was him. Oh, and similar, theme. They are so weird with her. And I didn't understand they're all very excited for her, telling her she's glowing, and her boss, who mentions his like female intuition twice, which I don't know if that was supposed to mean he's gay.
I think those, especially the office scenes, felt like it's supposed to be a satirical horror film, almost, because she's supposed to be on par with them, but they force her to buy them lunch every day,
right?
Where she acquiesces.
I think what you're saying is correct, but I don't think they did it well.
No, well, again, it feels out of place, and it's used every scene. Every scene utilized in the office requires her to order lunch.
When
her boss is played by Josh Hamilton, by the way.
From the only thing I know him from is from Ab Fab. He played Eddie's adult son in New York.
House of Yes, where he's Parker Posey's twin that he's infatuated with sexually.
Okay. When Dr. Hindle talks to Lucy about selective reduction, and she's like, he says, oh, let me talk to your husband outside of the room. And while she's in there, she looks at the like ultrasound, and the little female fetus like turns and stares at her. That was one good scene.
Yeah.
Okay. The big account Lucy's working with is called Wyth. WYTH. They mentioned this shit like 5 times.
Yes.
For no reason. What was the purpose? We don't even know what. Okay, the main page of Wyth's website is just a woman. So like a female profile. So that could be anything. Like sustainability consulting. I don't know what it was. It's not beauty. It's not whatever.
Well,
but then when they order lunch, she goes. When her boss says, "Let's celebrate that you're pregnant. Let's order lunch from somewhere even fancier." She goes, "What about Wyth?" So is Wyth a fancy restaurant?
No. I think she was diverting the conversation back to what about the account?
Oh, that's like that time someone approached me when I worked in the hotel and said, "Is there a gym here?" And I had an attitude like, "Well, I'm sure. What's his last name?" And the person was like, "No, stupid, a fitness center."
Maybe you're right, but that's how I took it.
No, I think you're right.
They ask her to give her opinion on a model they're using, and she's like, "Oh, she's too pretty. I think that this woman should be a sexy girl on the subway." What the hell is that? There are several bits of dialogue that I think if the tone had been more assured, that would make this kind of an amazing film. Because I'm really unsure about if Ilana Glazer is, because she's usually a comedian, and she usually has very pronouncedly curly, frizzy hair, and like in Broad City or in Rough Night opposite ScarJo, and she's usually notable for comedic chops, and she is so subservient in this. Like they're trying to do a Mia Farrow thing, but the hair they need more distinctive hair then.
Well, and to me, the Rosemary's Baby thing is like Mia Farrow's character seems so fragile. But and I don't know Ilana Glazer. I did not care for her in this movie. I just thought that she seems assertive in many ways, but then from the jump, she just seems so skeptical of things. And I felt like I needed more understanding of her relation. Like, is her husband not trustworthy and that's why she's acting? Like, I don't understand why this woman, your husband is a medical doctor. You don't seem to have any issues. So why is she so apprehensive about everything?
Well, and then it has her being almost a caricature, because there's one scene where she's like so giddy and she says, "Am I going to be one of those women who has it all?"
I wrote that down too.
We were cackling at that line because it's like, ooh.
Right.
But is this a meta gaslight film? Are we being gaslit as we're watching her be gaslit?
I think so, but it's not refined enough for my taste.
Yes, I agree, because there are several things that are very interesting that it drops the ball on.
Okay, so the thing I think is because there's so much going on, I think the thing that was most interesting is when Lucy first, right before she meets Grace Singleton, the midwife with soul, she watches a video where it looks like Grace is talking to her, but she's explaining sort of the history of childbirth. And she says a line that says, if birth was broken before these men came up with, it's as if, because Grace is talking about how like women for all of humanity have managed childbirth just fine, naturally. And then at a point, particularly with modern medicine, men have just taken over as if birth was broken before these men came up with the solutions. And then she says, we've been robbed of experiencing the richness of this process. I thought that little 5-minute thing, or not even 2-minute thing, was the most interesting aspect of the story. And at that point, I was sitting there for 45 minutes before we meet Grace Singleton. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I thought the first half of the film was kind of dry.
Well, there's a moment where it's like, are we going to meet her yet? She hasn't gotten there yet, and I feel like that's necessary.
Yes.
And then also coming back to her, so she goes to Grace. She finally goes to Grace after, does she know? Doesn't know she's being watched yet. And Grace has this conversation with her, and then the babies are born. That happens, and then she goes back to Grace again, and her office is completely transformed. And she says, what happened to your office? There were a lot more...
The decor has changed.
She
It was
said
a lot
something
more
like culturally...
yeah.
And Zainab Ja plays Grace. And she says, like, I'm not your magical negress. And which kind of opens up a different doorway into gaslighting Lucy as this desperate white woman who thinks it's totally acceptable and reasonable that there's this black lady.
So we assume that Grace is part of this thing, because why would she assume that just because Lucy referenced the decor that she would think that she's some sort of like mystical priestess?
But also she's throwing her, progressive liberalism at her because she's automatically sorry. Like, I'm sorry, but
if the filmmaker and the writers told me this is what they were going for, I'd be like, okay, I can see it, but it's just like, it's too much. It's just too much. I really, going back to...
But that would have been more powerful if they had utilized Grace better.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I think going back to Grace, what I was going to say is I think what I wanted at the 45-minute point when we meet Grace and she talks about how women have been robbed of this experience, that we were going to get some sort of revenge movie where Lucy... takes matters into her own hands, but it's not.
And I think you made a good point. There's a lot of scenes that are just kind of like gags, for, if you will, and a lot of references. Like Theroux is Adrian, that's from Rosemary's Baby, obviously, and her being not. When she's going under, hearing bits of insidious conversations, much like
she has lots of dreams of blood and all that.
She has one really good scene I liked that I wish hadn't been a dream. Was she's seeing one of the younger nurse give Justin Theroux a hotel room key to room 1992, and we see her inside the closet, and it's Theroux and Pierce Brosnan engaged in a sexual tryst. And when they turn around in a scene that apes The Shining, that scene in The Shining where Shelley Duvall sees the party members in the mask parading each other and turning.
And then 1992 ends up being the code to Adrian's safe. And Lucy opens Adrian's safe with that code, and she finds documents that show Adrian's been having her followed. There's a scene where Lucy's at work, and the way Lucy discovered Grace Singleton was through a magazine. On the cover, Dr. Hindle's on the cover, but then there's this woman, Grace Singleton, featured in a profile. And she takes the magazine from the doctor's office, and then while she's at work, the head nurse shows up and says, I'm gonna need that magazine back. It's really rude that you took it. And I just thought, like, again, the tone is so weird, because that was a decent scene because it was uncomfortable, like, oh, hell no. But I just think, like, Ilana Glazer's performance, she kind of has this, like, she has that, like, shit-eating grin face, like, like she's about to do something snarky, or that I just don't think represented the actions of this character well.
Sure.
I wasn't feeling it.
To when she finally does talk back to her husband, it's like, oh, this makes sense for her kind of screen presence that seems unnaturally suppressed in the performance.
Also, the film mentions mommy brain like 5 times.
It's irritating.
And I
think it's supposed to be.
And okay, so then we're thinking, because once we learn at the end that it's not the devil's baby, it's Dr. Hindle's baby in her, then it's like, well, all these sort of like demonic visions and ultra-violent visions she's been having are the result of mommy brain.
I think that she's being handled in a way that, because she is being gaslit very notably, like getting lunch for Justin Theroux, blah, blah, blah. And also by the one friend she makes, played by Sophia Bush, Corgan.
That was my next note, because we see Lucy go to like a mother, like pregnancy support group or whatever, and then she becomes close to this Sophia Bush. Sophie, what?
Corgan is the character's name.
Corgan. And she gets like, there were like, what, 4 scenes with her? Or 3? Well, 4, I guess.
Coffee and croissants, yeah.
And just talking about their pregnancies, and then she, at the last time they meet, well, no. They meet, and Lucy gives Corgan all her evidence that she's being followed.
That's a dumb scene, yeah.
And I'm like, Oh, for real? Because
you're not gonna go down to Kinko's and copy that first, like.
Because Corgan says, "Oh, my husband's an attorney, and we know this, so like, give it to me, and he can look at it." But then we go to the baby shower, and Lucy looks in Corgan's bathroom and sees that she has prescription medication from Dr. Hindle. So of course she's like, "The fuck? I've been talking to you about how awful this doctor is, and you've been seeing him." And then Corgan says, "Well, you've been acting so crazy. I went to your husband and told him, and like gave him all the evidence back."
And at this baby shower, she also gives her first copy edition of Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, because the whole thing about Lucy wanting the girl child is to name it Wendy, because she lost her mother at a young age, and it's her way to kind of find her way back to her mother. And there's all these motifs about, being stuck in a attachment childhood phase potentially. And there's one what would have been the creepiest scene, I think, is we see her looking like she's going to throw these twins out the window, and they float into the sky, which transforms into an illustration from Peter Pan of the children going to Never Never Land, which I thought if that had ended on that or left us with that would have been really powerful. But it becomes more of a dream sequence, because that way we avoid the, violence, of course, aftermath of that sequence.
There are a lot of interesting shots, like these dream sequences where we see. There's one where we see Lucy sort of walking into the bathroom, and we see her we see her walking, and then her reflection, and her reflection is fully dressed, but her walking is like covered in blood, a la Carrie. But then it doesn't work for two reasons, because I think the tone is so off, and then seeing Ilana Glazer's face, I don't know, it just seems off.
I think. Immediately I knew Pierce Brosnan was probably using his sperm, because he makes a line in the first consultation about how he wishes he could clone himself. That, and of course the news story about that one was an OBGYN that was pumping his sperm into all these women, very boys from Brazil. But I also got the sense of Dr. Hindle kept making me think of the Brindle Fly from Cronenberg and Body Horror, and also Art Hindle, who starred in Cronenberg's The Brood. I don't know if that's at all related, but based on all the other mishmash of stuff, maybe.
There's a scene, the scene when Lucy goes to confront Dr. Hindle. She meets the head nurse and says, "Take me to him now. I need to talk about these twin boys I wasn't supposed to deliver." And then the nurse takes her in and says, "Come on, don't tell me you didn't know. Like, you and your husband didn't talk about the merger." And then she gets on her little earpiece and says, "Bring me the whatever, the documents." And then this lady hands Lucy the actual contract of like this business merger. I thought that was ridiculous.
I also think they're making names about giving her an anglicized nickname, Lucy, because her name is like Luciana.
Oh yeah, there's that too. That her name's Lucia, but then she doesn't like to be called that. And
and which we were discussing. So is Pierce Brosnan only taking white women for patients? No, he would have to take at least women that have white husbands, if he's pulling the stunts he's pulling. Because there's actually an old Mary Higgins Clark book called The Cradle Will Fall, where this doctor's doing this to women, and it gets hemmed up because I think the doctor's Asian, and some of these kids start coming out looking like...
Then when Lucy confronts the doctor, he... in one of these stupid scenes where like the bad guy spills all the beans. He tells her everything, like, "Well, this is my sperm, I'm injecting it." Like, why would he even do that? Then... He's like, "Well, I'm not gonna let you get out of here." So he's preparing an injectable, which I'm assuming was gonna kill her. Like, what's he gonna do with this dead lady? Meanwhile, with a waiting room filled with patients. And I'm like, does he really think this woman who's like half his age is gonna stand there and let him inject her? And as soon as I thought that, she kicks him in the scrotum and then assaults him pretty badly. Then she shoves like what looks like a curling iron down.
It's the
probe thing down old girl's throat, the head nurse's throat. And then she says, "I trained myself not to have a gag reflex."
Yeah, and that's kind of not choppily, but it's edited in a way where it goes back and forth between the repeated opening sequence where she's walking down the street bloody.
Yes. So the final shot...
The tone of that is also oddly jarring, though.
It is, because the opening of the film is we see Lucy walking down the street covered in blood, and then that's her at the end leaving the doctor's office, and then she goes home to then give her babies to her husband to leave. That's all I have.
And that final,
this video's long.
That final scene where she just makes her husband leave with the babies kind of reminded me of the final scene from Sliver, when it's Sharon Stone going. Isn't Sharon Stone saying "grow up"?
So yeah, something like that. Oh, we still need to watch the alternate ending on YouTube for Sliver.
Yes, I do like that Hulu is kind of at least attempting to give us these adult thrillers again, much like the Sarah Polley film Run with Munchausen by Proxy film, which I enjoyed that one more than this. But there was a lot of fun to be had here. I think Pierce Brosnan is great. I was very entertained by him.
I don't know why you think he's so great. I think he looks great.
It's creepy because it's every time he's down there and the noises he's making and it's
he's the best part,
yeah.
but it doesn't make up for a film that I did not.
And
that
Justin
I
Theroux,
think should have been thought-provoking and provocative, and I don't think it is. I think it's just fucking crazy.
It could have been on a lot of different levels.
Justin Theroux does a really good job of playing like this, like selfish douchebag.
Yeah,
so.
kind of like John Cassavetes as Guy Woodhouse. But
anything else?
No.
What would you give this film?
2.5 out of 5.
I would give it 2 out of 5. Thank you.
Bye.